Hello everyone, this is Maliha Bhatt and welcome to the online series of National Dialogue on Climate Change. Today we'll be discussing how does climate change affect the Himalayas, and for that purpose we have with us Dr. Basanta Adhikari. As far as his achievements are concerned, he is a PhD in Earth Sciences from University of Vienna, Austria. He has been an author of 25 scientific papers, and he has also been a recipient of Young Scientist title and has been recognized as Young Affiliates by the World Academy of Science and Technology. And last but not the least, he is also a professor, associate professor at University of Engineering, Nepal. So let's welcome Dr. Basanta Adhikari. How are you, sir?
Thank you very much. I'm fine. Assalamu alaikum. Namaste. Good evening there in Pakistan, and very much pleased to be here. Thanks for your invitation, and I'm doing perfectly okay.
That's really good, sir. Today we'll be discussing Himalaya in context with climate change. तो सर आप हमें पहले ये बताएं कि हिमालय और क्लाइमेट चेंज का लिंक कैसे बनता है, लाइक हाउ these two different things are interconnected.
This is particularly very important issues in the Himalayas, because as we called Asian highland as a third pole, because we have the south and north pole, and then the third pole is the Himalayas, because we have the highest peaks, Mount Everest and Mount K2 in Pakistan. So this whole 2,400 kilometer mountain chain, starting from western part and then central and the eastern up to the Bhutan. So this is particularly important because this is the highest land and altitude is very high. So these orographic things, the altitudinal things plays the important role for atmospheric circulation and other things. So that's why this particular region is quite important to understand the climate change in a global scale. But within the Himalayas also, there are so many differences between western and eastern. But if you take the whole example of the Himalaya as a whole, and there is always particular relationship between this global climate change or temperature increasing or different erratic rainfall and others. So this is particularly important issues in the Himalayas. So there are that's why these two aspects are quite related, Himalaya and climate change.
Oh, great, sir. So, sir, let's begin with the slideshow that you have prepared for our forum. So that our audience could see Himalayan mountains, glacier melt, and glacial lakes. And let's have a tour to Himalaya.
Thank you very much. So I'll share my slides. So can you see my slides?
Yes, sir, I can see your slides.
Okay, thanks. So welcome to my presentation. As you can see that the ice and melting ice in the mountains. So I'm going to present about this, how climate change affects in the Himalayas. And as she already introduced myself, I'm not going to introduce about me. So as you can see that this is the beautiful peak, which is Mount Dhaulagiri in the central Nepal, the central Himalaya. You can see the beautiful snow-capped mountain, and people are enjoying there. And this is the best, one of the best trekking sites in Nepal, Himalaya. And this is the rain shadow zone. It's called Mustang Kaligandaki Valley, which is very popular for trekking. And you can see the small tributaries is flowing, and you can see some greenery within this cold dry land. And these tributaries from the glaciers in the mountains behind the clouds. So another pictures, if you see in the Kaligandaki again, these places you can see, which is more than 3,600 meters, and you can see this white water flowing directly from the glaciers. And these peoples are really depending upon the rivers and the water in that area. So without this water, these people cannot live and sustain their livelihood and other things. And this is the beautiful peak in the Himalaya. It's called Fishtail, and in the Pokhara, beautiful city. So many people, they come to Nepal to see this majestic beauty of Himalaya. And just imagine if we don't have snow, and what would be the scenario? And then the tourism business will be vanished. So now the climate change is directly affecting this melting of this snow and the glaciers, and we are facing a real trouble in these days. So some of the pictures which you can see here, this is the Rongbuk Glacier in the southern Tibet. This is the picture of 1921, and the bottom picture, which was taken in 2008, and you can clearly see that there is no snow here, only the debris or the moraine, ground moraine. So it shows that due to the increasing temperature, all this glacier have already melted down. Another picture, which is the Imja Glacier, taken picture in 1950 and 2007, it also explained that all this snow you can see this black and white picture, it's already melted, and then you can see these glacial lakes. So these glacial lakes forming process is directly related to the climate change issues or temperature increase. To understand these whole dynamics of the Himalaya, we had to understand the topography. This is the bottom part and the lowland, and this is the higher part and the Himalayas. So ranging from less than 300 meters to top of the world, you can see the different topographic variations, and these topographic variations are playing important role for this atmospheric circulation and microclimate in the Himalayas. So this is some cross sections of the Himalaya. So let's look some of the examples that we are facing in the whole Himalaya. Some water related hazard. You can see this GLOP event that happened in 2016 in the Botikosi. This Botikosi river flowing from Tibet to Nepal and then finally to India. And we had a similar event in 1993 in the cloud bursting. We had a huge amount of rainfall, and then the central part of Nepal just devastated by debris flow. And then you can see this debris, and you can see the houses. You can take a scale of this, the man for the scale, and you can imagine how big are these boulders. Not only that, in 2017 we faced the flood in the southern part of Nepal, which clearly shows that these erratic events are contributing for this flood event in the Himalayas. As we know that we are living in the mountains, so we have to depend upon the hydropower, and we are constructing hydropower starting from Pakistan to India, Nepal, and then to Bhutan. If you see this slide, this yellow, and then yes, which is already operating hydropowers, and then the red one, this is the proposed, and then the blue circles are the glacial lakes. So you just imagine how much these hydropower, current hydropower and potential hydropower are really depending upon the scenario and the situation over there. And we had to really calculate what would be the scenario if these glacial lakes would fail, or if the melting already started. And then we have to think about all this, the safety, and then discharge to the hydropower and others. So one particular example I will show you over here from this region. In 1985, the glacial lake outburst flood actually damaged one small hydropower in the damage by Dixo Glacier. So, and then actually this research on glacial lake outburst flood has started, and then ICIMOD has been doing really good work on this aspect in the Himalayas. Not only that, if we look on the botanical aspect or the tree line shifting, you can see in this picture the current situation, and this is the current distribution of this Betula utilis. If you are a student of botanical or environmental science, you understand these things. And then the overlap color, and then the red one is, the proposed future distribution. So this tree line shifting can be observed throughout this Himalayas, and my colleague Sigdale and others have published a really good paper on this decadal tree recruitment on the Himalayan tree line. You can see the different changes changing from different time period, and so these are this tree line shifting we can easily see due to this climate change in the Himalayas. So if you
Sir,
study more,
could you please elaborate Betula utilis for our audience?
yeah, this is the plant you can find in the Himalayan region. This is the tree, and you can. I don't know this local name because local name is different from place to place. This is the botanical name. So
Okay.
you can just search and Google it, and all the plant and other descriptions. And then recent studies came just now in the article The Guardian. It says that the grass growing around the Mount Everest as the global heating intensified. And then if you read this news in details, you can see these two images where you can see this blue color of the grass line in 1993 and the red in 2017. So the grass line is, you can find around Mount Everest. But it is not well known how this vegetation affect on this the scenario. And the increased vegetation in Arctic, one study shows that they deliver the warming effect to the surrounding landscape. So that's why this seasonal snow, and if you get the warmers, then this quicker melt rates, and it increase the risk of flooding. That is one of the authors, Karen Anderson, explained on this region. So that's why this is the important aspect that we are facing in these areas. And many people think that there is a positive and negative aspects of climate change, but at the end of the day, we can see that there is a too much and too little water. This is the very good write-up by my colleague Ramesh Busal from Nepal. He wrote an article in Third Pole Net. You can go and look, where you can see the roaring rivers, Kosi River. There are lots of water and flooding in the river, but people are dying, or not dying, but is having difficulties to face the water in the mountainous region. But in the flatland, in the downstream, in Nepal and India and up to the Bangladesh, this Kosi River, this fan or this Kosi just flooded and then deposits all these sands to the paddy field or agriculture land, and then destruction. So that's why this effect of climate change for this, sometimes we have too much water and sometimes too little water. So these kind of consequences can be seen in the livelihood, because our livelihoods in the mountainous region are not only in Nepal but also in Pakistan, India, Bhutan, depends upon tourism. And also, for example, one particular picture here, you can see the people have built the houses just nearby the river, and then the river through cutting can destroy these houses, and they will lose their houses, and then they will be affected. And then also the similar pictures from Pokhara. If there is no snow, no tourist, and so no tourism, no livelihood, no business. So that's why this is the direct impact we can see in the Himalayas in different countries. Maybe we are thinking too much about the physical factors, but if you see on the effect of climate change on public health, I'm giving one example. So you can see this triangle in red, which in the southern part of Nepal, in southern districts, they had malaria in 1978 and 1980, but this malaria reported from the middle hill districts also in between 1981 to 2012. And then again, you see these additional malaria cases reported from the Himalayan districts also. So the effect of the climate change or increasing temperature also creating the problems or creating directly effect to the public health in these countries. And this example you can check not only from Nepal but also from India and Pakistan or Afghanistan or in Bhutan and other places also. So another negative aspect of this climate change in Himalayas is the drought, which is the prolonged low rainfall. You can see the data from 1981 to, I'm just taking data from Dahal and others in 2016, where you can see this drought occurrences in monsoon is increasing and also in the winter increasing. As we know that the mountainous people like us, we are depending on such kind of agriculture patterns, some terraces, and then we need water. And most of our agriculture practice or agriculture is depending upon the rainfall. So if we don't have rainfall on in the right time, then we cannot produce the good, the food and others. And so that's why this is the prolonged drought events can be really disastrous in these areas. So in differently, if you see the forest fire, one example from Nepal also, before the forest fire before 2016 and in 2016, you can see this, number of wildfire incidents are increased in 2016, which explained by Bhuzel and others co-authors. So this might be related, or this is related with the climate change in different ways. I mean, there are lots of depth study about this, but we can see the the consequences over there, and you can see the NASA images from 2009 where you can see this fire events. So in 2009 in Nepal we faced a very heavy storm, and later Nepalese scientists they declared that is the first tornado event in the Nepal Himalaya. And if you read this paper in Nature, this article, you can see that it says that 28 people died and more than 1,000 people were injured. So this is the things we can we are facing nowadays. So this glacial retreat, which is the major the phenomenon that we are facing. So, for example, one Tulagi Lake Glacier in 1992, and in 2019, you can see this lake increase due to the glacial retreat or glacial melting. So, if you look the water towers in the whole Hindu Kush Himalaya, starting from Indus, Brahmaputra, Satluj, and others, you can see the water tower exists in this Hindu Kush Karakoram region. And then this paper explained that if you read this paper, which published in Nature Climate Change back in 2014, it says that they project the increase of runoff at least until 2050, and then we have to think about these climate change policies and water availability issues downstream in this region. And then the recent paper by Imerizel in 2019 shows that these are the water towers in Asia, America, and Latin America. But this region, you can see, this water basin or water tower. So it says that 4 of the 5 most crucial water towers are located in the Hindu Kush Himalaya. So this is the real threat that we are facing in our region. If you see the contribution of snow and glaciers from 1981 to 2010, you can see this contribution in different colors, denotes the different mean annual contribution in different Indus, Ganga, and Brahmaputra basin. And then if you see the data, so more than 129 million farmers in the Indus and Gangas are depending upon snow and glaciers, and which provide the balanced diet for 38 million people. And just imagine if the snow is already gone, and then at the end, these people will not, get the water, and then we cannot produce the really good production. So these are some glacial lakes made by Isimot, starting northern from the Peshawar, and then you can see the whole Himalayan chains up to the Brahmaputra and then Bhutan. So one of my colleague, Wei and others, they have done really good work that you can see this Glock events from 1935 to 2017, and this circle denotes the lake area and the color denotes the lake quantity. And if you look on detail, these are the some detailed description they have given, where you can see this light yellow triangle and light blue triangle, dark blue triangle, and red. So red are the newly detected in the Lancet era from 1988 to 2017, and then so this light before the 1935 to 1988. So these are the details that you can find in the paper that published recently. And then, so since 1990, you can see that more than 400 new glacial lakes have formed in western and central Himalayas.
So there is a question, sir. Our viewers wanted to know that are these glacial lakes the outcome of global warming, or are they formed naturally?
Now, some lakes are, of course, formed naturally, but there is a contribution of climate change. If the temperature doesn't increase, then the glacier doesn't melt. So this is the direct effect for this creation of these glacial lakes on the Himalayas.
Sir, how could we identify if a glacial lake is formed? Is it a product of global warming, or is it formed naturally? How could we, estimate it?
For that you have to analyze this lake area increasing using the satellite images. Then you have to understand the temperature increase, and then you can try to correlate whether these are really contributions from the increasing temperature or from the other particular events. There are lots of models that you can produce.
Okay, sir.
So you can see the one particular lake in Nepal, and then you can see the small village here. If the lake is burst, then this village will be washed away. So we have to think about these conditions. So some of the pictures that you can see about the glacial lakes, which developed before. This is the 1991 and 1994 pictures I've taken from Isimor. Another one is Chorolpa. You can see this moraine, which is 150 meter the height. So this is very loose debris, unconsolidated material, which if the lake water increase, then hydrostatic pressure increase, and then it can be burst and the downstream areas will be affected. So this particular area that happened in 2016, we had a flood, and this is the border between Nepal and China, but we didn't know what was the real cause. And then the government of Nepal has requested to Google Earth to provide the real good satellite images. And you can see that here, this in 2014, this green color or green area denotes the lake area, but in 2016, this is small debris just brushed this lake, and then you can see this, the flood that happened in Botigosi. Some of the pictures you can see. This is the Tibet, China, and this is the China. This is Nepal. You can see the river erosion. So this is the friendship between Nepal and China. So this area, the road has already affected by this flood. Not only in the Nepalese side, but also in the Chinese side. This you can see this river erosion. So hydropower also affected by this event, and now it's already operated after 3 years. So not only Nepal Himalaya, I just saw in Twitter from Pamir Times. So it says that this Sispar Glacier lake flooding has occurred. You can go in the internet and YouTube, you can see this the flood and destroying this house. So in the Hunza, so you can see that such kind of events are existing in that part of the Himalaya also. And also there is a avalanche by the climate change. So there is another article by in Third Pole Net, which is the avalanche and climate change. it clearly shows that there was the avalanche event in Kashmir, both in Indian part and in in Pakistan part. So particularly in 2012, a massive avalanche in the lower Siachen killed 140 Pakistani soldiers. So this not only in Pakistan but also in the Indian soldiers also they have lost their lives. So this direct effect of avalanche and the climate change. And another important issue is the human migration, which we call climate refugee. One example from Nepal in the Kaliganjaki Valley, where you can see there is a place, it's called Samjong. These people, they face the lack of water, and then they shift from this place to this place. So directly shifted from here to there. And you can just imagine how they are using their livelihood, because they were enjoying this cattle grazing over here, but now they are living in these houses made by the government. So in 2016, 18 households were shifted, and this photo was taken in 2019 when I was in the field. Not only in the Nepal, but also if you see these climate refugee in India, like in Kumik Valley, so a small village, the farmers, the water dried out, and they had to relocate from one place to another place. So this is the real things are people are facing. So these are some recent events that we are talking. But what about the long-term effect? If you look on these publications, which from the Neogen Portland Basin and Bengal Fan, so I just took the picture from Nakayama and Wulak, you can see from 15 million years to now, where there are certain changes. For example, from 7 million years, so C3 vegetation, which is the colder temperature, like there was a plants like rice, wheat, and soybeans, but now we can see the C4 vegetations, which are more warmer temperature, so that the changing in temperature you can see from the stable isotopes and others. You can analyze these things. So in the long term also, if you drill the ice core, you can also understand the climate change issues in these mountains. So maybe you all aware of this 1.5 degree report by IPCC, where we have to cut down 1.5 to balance these things. But there are some positive, some scenarios, different scenarios based on different the conditions. But if you look particularly in the Himalayan region, you see that the temperature mean is increasing. You can see the different increasing trend also. This is the data from 2019 EC mode publication. And if you are really interested to know more about, you can go and read these beautiful publications published by EC mode and Springer, the Hindu Kush Himalaya assessment report, where it says that this particular example is very important. If the global warming is kept 1.5 degree, the Hindu Kush Himalaya region will likely be at least 0.3 higher in this region. So this is very interesting book, is easily freely available from the EC mode site and Springer also. So these are my some of the thoughts and my experiences and my presentation, brief presentation about climate change scenarios in the Himalaya. I was trying to give a holistic approach, thinking to discuss more about this environmental week, about the environmental change and climate change to our Pakistani colleagues, students, and fellow scientists. And so I'm always interested to interact with my colleagues in days to come. And this is my personal web page. You can see my web page, and you can just log on and explore about
sure, sir.
what I'm trying.
Sir.
And so, yeah, and these are some of my thoughts, and you can find my emails and others. So I'll be very happy to discuss now, or you can send me an email about your questions if you are really interested to be connected with me and to actively participate in my projects. I'm always
thank you so much, sir. Sir, we are bashed with hundreds of questions, and I'm sure कि उनके सवाल क्या होंगे. और अगर मैं इसकी थोड़ा सा आपको बता दूं, कि अब हमारी ऑडियंस को जो वो क्यूरीज हैं वो ये हैं कि वो कहते हैं कि क्लाइमेट चेंज जो हम हिमालय में बात किया है हमने अभी जिस जो भी हमारे जो सवाल आएंगे हम उसमें भी देखेंगे। सर सवाल ये होता है कि हम एक तरफ देखते हैं कि हाइट ऑफ माउंट एवरेस्ट इज कंटिन्यूसली इंक्रीजिंग, एट द अदर इंस्टेंट वी आर रीडिंग यस देयर इज अ ग्लोबल वार्मिंग एंड हिमालयाज ग्लेशियर्स आर मेल्टिंग। So there are two contradictory opinions that we came across with in our daily lives. तो मैं चाहूंगी आप इसका जवाब दें ही साथ साथ, और इसके साथ साथ सर हम अपने कमेंट सेक्शन में चलते हैं। सर ये रेक्स पूछे है, इट्स अ वेरी डिवास्टेटिंग एडवर्स इफेक्ट ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज, is it that correct from Biafranland? Sir, I couldn't pronounce it clearly. Then, sir, we have with us Ehsan Abbas. According to him, Himalaya being the most historically significant mountain, how is it that its melting will pose a challenge culturally and historically? Sir, आप इसको कैसे देखते हैं कि historically and culturally challenge होगा melting of Himalaya?
Yeah, the question raised by Abbas is very valid because this is very historically and culturally important side. As I explained to you some of my slide that people have already migrated from one place to another places. When people migrate due to this, lack of the water, so snow is already melted, so no water. So that's why when you, travel or when you shift from one place to another place, then everything will be changed. You lose your original position, and how can you keep your cultural ethics or cultural remnant sites and others? So that is the direct impact. And of course, if the similar situation remains, then this will be a devastating effect in the culturally and socially in the Himalayas.
Okay, sir. Suraj Gautam said it is always pleasure to hear from you, Dr. Basanta. Okay. And said we have another comment from Dua Ahmed. She says, okay, what effect will the melting glacier of Himalaya have on the biodiversity of the region? So we haven't touched biodiversity yet.
Yes, I was just briefly talking about this, tree land shifting only. But in terms of biodiversity, for example, the snow leopards, you can find in the higher Himalaya, and if there is no glacier or no snow, then such kind of animals might be vanished. And then in terms of plants and grazing and cattle grazings, in terms of other biodiversity activities which are really relying on the present scenario of the snow and glacier, if there is no such things, then they will be vanished, or you cannot imagine that you can find such kind of real good biodiversity in that region. So there is a really adverse effect on that.
Okay, sir, we have another question from Najam Ilyas. He's saying, what precautionary measures should farmers take with accelerating climate changes?
Yeah, this is very pertinent question because as our countries are depending upon the agriculture, so there are a couple of the things that farmers can do. So one is the adaptation. People are trying different methods. So one of the best traditional method is the rotating crop. So every year or around the year, you rotate the crop so that you can change the soil fertility and other things, soil nutrient, other things. That won't be the one particular things. Another one is that if you have adverse effect, then particular crop, if you cannot produce, then you have to shift from that crop to another crop, which are more adaptable in the changing climate. And there are other issues or more local issues, and you have to deal with the locally.
Okay, sir. There is another question from Iftihaj Ahmed. He's saying, how is the rate of melting measured? How accurate is the method? How accurate is the method? Sir, how accurately can we measure the melting of glaciers? Is it proven by more flow upstream and downstream?
Yeah, this is always discussion in scientific world, that how accurately we can measure. Most of these ice melting and others in the higher Himalayas are mostly based on the satellite imagery. And as you know that if you have a good resolution of satellite image, we can measure correctly. But in terms of the discharge and the downstream, we can measure different ways. You can install the radar, you can install the gauge stations, but it depends upon the advancement of the methodologies and apparatus that we are using. So definitely there is always room of improvement, but the science now tells that we can measure quite correctly these things.
Okay, so according to Simra Bas, at one instant we have glacial melt, and the other instant we are facing the threat of water scarcity. So, how could we control water scarcity in the presence of glacial melt due to global warming?
Yes, of course. When the glaciers are melting, in the short run, you might find flooding events or high water. But at the end, in the other season, not in the monsoon season and the dry season, when there is no glaciers, then we don't have any water. So we have to, there are the best way to reduce the emission of carbon dioxide by the anthropogenic activities that we are facing. Of course, it's not the only one event, but that the human can do. But we can preserve some of these, areas in the highland. There are so many watershed approaches that we can apply for this regulation of this flow, and then we can do. But in terms of glaciers, I think it's only the best way to reduce the adverse effect made by the anthropogenic activities.
ओके सर, ये मीसम रिजवी ने पूछा आपसे कि सर एक बहुत ही हाइपोथेटिकल सिनेरियो बनाया है. उन्होंने कहा कि इमेजिन द अटर डिसअपीयरेंस ऑफ द हिमालयस इन 50 years. What negative consequences will the people face both physically and culturally?
Yeah, this is very very interesting, and thanks, Majum, for raising this question. As I told you that in my presentation slide, if there is no ice and snow in the high mountains, people cannot live. So they had to sit down to the lowland, and they cannot practice their own things culturally what they are using nowadays. This is culturally there's a huge effect. Just imagine in the northeast frontier of Pakistan, in the Karakoram Himalayas, then the people are living in the Hunza Valley. If there is no any snow, then or melting snow, then you can just imagine the situation. And physically, of course, disappearances of these glaciers. There is no water in the highland, and no river environment. So the topography and the geomorphology will change significantly.
Okay, sir, Maria Gayas ने पूछा है कि what combined efforts are required by regional countries to limit the effects of climate change on Himalayas? जैसे सर आपने सियाचिन की बात की थी कि वहाँ पे सर मिलिट्री प्रेजेंस बढ़ती जा रही है. सर आपने हाइड्रो पावर की एग्जांपल दी कि हम हाइड्रो पावर बहुत ज्यादा जो है वहाँ पे इंस्टॉल किए जा चुके हैं, जिसका मकसद है कि ह्यूमन प्रेजेंस बढ़ रही है. सर टूरिज्म में भी इजाफा हम देख रहे हैं. तो सर ये आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि हम जो क्लाइमेट चेंज इफेक्ट वो हिमालय पे आ रहा है वो मोस्टली मैन मेड है?
No thing, hydropower issues. I think if we produce the hydropower, electricity from hydropower is the good clean energy, and then we reduce the fossil fuel burning. This is the positive aspect. But if you talk about if you produce the hydropower in the mountainous region, more people will be there, and there will be more devastation. That we can use by using the environmental impact assessment, and you can reduce the effect of these things. But the combined effect that the regional countries that we have to use that preservation of forest, where we can use the carbon sinking. For example, community forestry, that the people in Nepal, they are working very nicely. And I think that there are quite good experiences in Pakistan also. So we have to share these good practices for conservation of this biodiversity and other things to reduce the carbon emission. At the end, we will reduce the effect of climate change in the Himalayas.
ओके सर, नजम इलियास का क्वेश्चन आपने ऑलरेडी आंसर कर दिया कि कैन रिफॉरेस्टेशन बी यूज्ड एज अ रेमेडी फॉर क्लाइमेट चेंज इन द हिमालयास. सर इसका जवाब दे चुके हैं. देन वी हैव अ क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम अनुषा मानुला. इसका भी जवाब हमें मिल चुका है. इट इज ऑफन कॉम्प्लिकेटेड दैट मेल्टिंग आइस कैन ब्रिंग मोर पेंडेमिक. इज देयर अ पॉसिबिलिटी ऑफ दिस बीइंग ट्रू? ऑब्वियसली सर ने इसको आंसर किया. इफ्तिहाज अहमद ने हमसे दोबारा क्वेश्चन किया है, व्हाई इज देयर नो ग्लोबल कंसेंसस? सर ये आप देखें, why is there no global consensus on the effect of climate change on Himalayas? And why some say that it is early to say that glaciers are receding radially? Because there are few scientists who do not believe that Himalayas are melting.
Yeah, thanks. Iftihad is really good question. Yeah, there is always discussion about the climate change scientists and who believes and who not. Some say it's a hoax. But if you look in terms of the large scale, if you talk about the geological time scale, if you talk about the Milankovitch cycle, we are in the cooling stage. But if you look on this 200, 300 years data, the temperature is increasing. We can see this effect in the Himalayas. Of course. Why we
Okay,
don't
sir.
have global consciousness? Because our member countries should raise this voice in the climate change negotiation in different meetings, so that the people will think about that, and we will be able to negotiate on that thing.
Sir, ये हमारे पास कोई foreigner है, Sanam Aksha. Her question is, what would be the best strategy to deal differential vulnerability produced by climate change, especially in the context of climate refugees?
I didn't hear you. Can you tell me? Can you tell me now
Okay, sir.
again?
So, what would be the best strategy to? Yes, sir. I'm repeating. What would be the best strategy to deal differential vulnerability produced by climate change, especially in the context of climate refugees? She's talking about the migration that occurs after the climate.
Yes, thank you. I can see the question now. Thanks, Sanam. It's a very nice question. He's a very good colleague of mine. So the one thing is that the preservation of their local cultural and local biodiversity and their own, this migration. Then the government has to develop different strategies. For example, retention ponds. For example, the shifting of different ways of adaptation practices depending upon the local culture. For example, in Kaligandaki Valley, we can adapt different ways. But maybe in the western part of Himalayas, there are different ways. So, there are lots of issues and lots of practices. And I can see that Sonam also working on these vulnerability issues in the Nepal Himalaya. And then, there are so many issues. We can talk more on that.
Okay, sir. Sir, we have another comment from Koshal Raj. He's calling our session very informative and awakening call. Thank you, Koshal. And Suhail Raza, he's saying our session is very informative. And Quantinium, he called our session very informative. Thank you. QT Rida is also impressed by our talk. Sir, Simra Bas पूछे, if we construct dams, will it help us to store water for the future from glacial melt?
So it's question. Okay, I can see the question now.
Okay.
If we construct dam, will hit this? No. Glacial melting and constructing dam is different things. The construct dam, you can preserve the water, but melting of glacier is different thing. You have to understand the phenomenon how the glacial melt occurs. You have to understand the influence of the interaction of temperature and the glacial melt. So constructing dam is only the preservation of water only.
Okay, sir, thank you so much for your time. We still have numbers of unanswered questions in our comment box, and we have already crossed our limited time. That is, we set it for 40 minutes, and we are 3 minutes beyond it. So sir will look into your questions in the comment box, and he will surely answer your comments there. And thank you so much for your time, sir. So, do you want to say something about NDCC and about your forum?
Yes, thank you, Malia and Muta, for inviting me. And this NDCC is very good platform that you are really inspiring to younger generation to understand the climate change issues that happening not only in Pakistan but beyond the border in the working on the whole Himalaya. I'm really happy. You guys are really doing good, and there are lots of young, beautiful, talented mind in Pakistan, and you guys are really promoting them, and I'm always there if there is something that I can be helpful, or if you are really interested, I'm always available. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. We had a great session, and it's beautiful listening you and touring Himalaya and seeing beautiful mountains. Thank you so much for your valuable time. Inshallah, we'll see you soon in another session.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.